Incredible story revealed, Black woman CEO's seat stolen, inspiring transformation grounds flight. Maya Carter leaned against the cool glass walls of the conference hall, her heartbeat resonating louder than the cacophony around her. With the weight of her family's legacy on her shoulders, she had worked tirelessly to secure her position as CEO of a cutting-edge tech startup in New York City. The remnants of her father's voice echoed in her mind, a reminder to pursue integrity above all. But now, as she clasped her notes tightly, the reality struck her harder than any boardroom confrontation. Her reserved seat was gone, turned over to Gregory Chase, her rival known for his cunning, underhanded tactics. Maya's chest tightened. What did this mean for her ambitious project designed to uplift marginalized voices in the tech world? She felt an overwhelming sense of loss not just for her own ambition, but for the hopes of every woman of color striving to make strides in corporate America. They were counting on her to break through the invisible barriers, yet here she was, relegated to the sidelines. As she felt the stares of skeptics brush against her, anger flared within her, threatening to consume the optimism with which she had approached this moment. Before she spiraled into despair, her phone vibrated. It was her grandmother, a beacon of strength and resilience. "Maya, listen, I know it's hard," her voice crackled through the speaker. "But with every setback comes an opportunity to rise. Remember our bloodline, it's filled with warriors." Each word wrapped around her like a warm embrace, sparking the flame of determination within her again. But that determination clashed with a surge of resentment building rapidly within her. She gripped the phone tighter, pondering a darker path. Should she expose Gregory's underhanded dealings, or remain steadfast in her integrity? The moral quandary twisted like a taut wire in her mind. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the presentation began, a crowd filled the hall, and Maya remained frozen, the temptation to fight darkly whispering to her. She could expose Gregory, his questionable ethics could crumble his reputation, but was that the path she wanted to walk? The stakes felt heavier with each passing moment, one misstep and she could lose everything her father had fought for. Her heart raced as she shifted on her heels. Attention was drawn to her as she remained hidden in the shadows. Fighting back against waves of doubt felt insurmountable. She thought of all those who had come before her and fought harder, the idea of betrayal twisted her gut. Then, a breakthrough, a piece of information surfaced that could change everything. Her mind swirled with fragments of thought: exposure versus integrity. The conference continued around her, filled with the industry's brightest minds, yet she felt utterly isolated, confronted by her own beliefs and ambitions. The echo of her grandmother's voice fused with her own aspirations, blurring the moral lines she once held dear. In that moment, just as she stood on the edge of her decision, a shocking revelation burst forth. The hidden truths about her family's past ignited a fire beneath her resolve. Was it time to confront the barriers head-on, or would self-doubt lead her to retreat into silence? As the crowd murmured, eyes searching for a leader, the tension thickened. Maya stood on the precipice of her choices, knowing whatever path she chose could alter her identity forever. Maya took a deep breath, her vision blurring slightly as she wrestled with the conflicting emotions spiraling through her. She could either play it safe, remaining in the shadows while Gregory basked in the spotlight, or she could seize this moment and confront not just him, but her own fears head-on. The weight of her legacy bore down on her, the eyes of the world, particularly those who looked like her, felt like an unbearable pressure. Each heartbeat seemed to sync with the rhythm of the presentation on stage. It wasn't about her anymore, it was about all the women who had been overlooked, all the doors shut in their faces, and all the voices silenced just because they dared to dream bigger. The steeliness of her grandmother's words echoed its filled with warriors. Maybe it was time to embrace that warrior spirit, to leverage the knowledge she possessed. Maya's mind raced as the rumor swirled in her thoughts, a secret kept even from her. It had been no accident that her family had faced hardships over generations. There were layers of challenges that she hadn't yet untangled. The information she stumbled upon earlier, a discovery of old documents revealing her family's resilience and struggle against indifference, was now her fuel. This inner strength was entwined with the knowledge that her family had fought against adversity with transparency, not deceit. The question became clearer: how could she honor them? With each passing moment, her determination transformed from uncertainty into a fiery clarity. She couldn't afford to be just a passive observer in her destiny. Stepping away from the glass wall, she adjusted her blazer, straightened her posture, and moved as though she could feel the energy of every woman who came before her surging through her veins. Then, just as she positioned herself closer to the stage, a microphone extended towards Gregory. In that instant, the opportunity presented itself not only to listen but to act. Maya felt the pulse of possibility surge within her. Could she potentially gather the courage to address him directly? To confront not just him but what he had represented all this time: inequity, manipulation, and the avoidance of accountability? Before she could think better of it, the words spilled from her mouth: "Gregory, are you proud to have taken a seat under such dubious circumstances? What does that say about the legacy you're building?" The question hung in the air, stark against the backdrop of the crowd's confusion and shock. Heads turned, the theater collectively inhaled, riveted by her boldness. A mixture of horror and relief coursed through her. There was no turning back now. The realization that her voice could make an impact sent adrenaline coursing through her. She was no longer the quiet observer, she had become a force ready to reclaim the narrative. The faces around her shifted, echoing a myriad of reactions, some in disbelief, others with admiration. But as Gregory's smirk faded into irritation, Maya's initial courage began feeling precarious. His retort was poised to test her heart. What if he had an answer that undermined the conviction she'd just summoned? What if his response was more than mere words, revealing deeper conflicts that raged beneath the surface of their professional rivalry? The moment stretched, filled with a silence that felt infinite. With her heart pounding and eyes trained on Gregory, she braced herself for whatever might come next. Though she had chosen to stand firm in her integrity, the anger brewing inside Gregory suggested this was only the beginning. How far was he willing to go to protect his interests? Would she have the strength to withstand whatever battle lay ahead? Maya realized she was on the brink of something monumental and dangerously transformative. Whatever faced her now in that conference hall would alter the course of her life forever. Maya's challenge hung in the air like a charged electric current, waiting for a spark. Every eye in the room seemed glued to her, as if her next move could rewrite the rules of the game. The once distant doubts collided in her mind, each thought whispering fears of inadequacy. What if she had stepped too far? But the rush of adrenaline reminded her why she was there. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was a reckoning. Gregory's expression morphed into one of calculated surprise, his composure unraveling as the crowd buzzed with anticipation. Her heart raced not only from the confrontation but from the idea that her voice, at long last, could shift the paradigm. This is it, she thought, her mind a tempest of determination. She was no longer hiding behind the glass walls of her previous insecurity. "Do you really think anyone buys your facade anymore?" she pressed, the words flowing more confidently now. Gregory, realizing the threat she posed, clenched his jaw. There was power in his silence, it spoke volumes. He finally spoke, lacing his retort with carefully crafted indignation. "Maya, always the idealist. You know the world doesn't work on emotion, it's strictly business." She felt the indignity of his words echo through the room like a taunt. But instead of retreating, they ignited something primal within her. "Business shouldn't be about exploiting the vulnerable," she shot back, each word a carefully aimed arrow. And hiding behind corporate politics won't shield you from accountability. Women like me stand to challenge that. As she articulated her truth, she felt a shift in energy. Some in the audience nodded, others murmured. Was this a rallying cry? She took a deep breath, nearly overwhelmed by the realization she was setting fire to not just their expectations of her, but also her own. Gregory's eyes ignited with anger, revealing cracks in his polished exterior. He straightened, reclaiming his posture, and Maya sensed the looming battle ahead. "You're underestimating your competition, Maya," he warned, a hint of desperation breaking through his professional veneer. "This community doesn't want confrontation. They want results like my management brings." Each of his words was meant to shake her resolve, yet, she would not relent. Neither the stakes nor the risk could dissuade her now. Now she understood the balance between vulnerability and strength, between observation and involvement. Confrontation was not merely a tactic, it was an invitation to redefine her narrative. "Gregory," she began, her voice steady, "your results come at the cost of integrity. And the very foundation of our industry is crumbling under those ambitions. The truth is, empowered women like me aren't going to play by those rules anymore." The palpable tension now crackled around them. This ripple effect was not just about exchange of words, it coursed through the crowd, igniting a new energy. Toward the back, she noticed a small group of women watching intently, their expressions a mix of fear and excitement. This was more than her fight. She was steering a larger conversation, one that reached beyond her own ambitions. But Gregory was unyielding, muscles tightly coiled to pounce back. As she met his glare, she could see hints of his doubt, the undercurrents of his own insecurities. This was a power struggle, one she couldn't lose. But if she persisted, what backlash awaited her? Just then, a thought struck her like a thunderclap. Maya realized this was an opening, a moment of conversion that could ignite deeper questions among her peers. Still, she stated boldly, "What have you really built if it's built on the backs of those who feel crushed beneath your deals?" That challenge hung heavy in the air as murmurs spread through the crowd, their eyes reflecting the heated debate unfolding. Each word was a step further into uncharted territory. Would they stand with her? Or would the fear of reprisal push them back into complacency? The danger lay ahead, but Maya found clarity amid the storm. Her evolution began right then, right there, and nothing would be the same. "Remember, I'm not afraid to take my seat at this table," she solidified her resolve, her voice carrying with it the weight of history and future. In that moment, they weren't merely adversaries, they were symbols of a larger societal struggle. But would the crowd support a voice like hers, or would they buckle under the shadow of what Gregory represented? Would she be able to uphold this newfound strength, or was it simply another fleeting moment in the battleground of corporate politics? Maya felt her breath quicken, the weight of the moment pressing on her chest. The murmurs from the crowd resonated in her ears, an unforeseen reinforcement that surged through her veins. She was no longer just a participant, she had become a catalyst. Yet the uncertainty lingered ominously like a storm cloud ready to release its fury. Had she miscalculated by confronting Gregory so directly? The air thickened with tension, and she could sense the palpable shift in perception surrounding her. It was startling, this was not merely a transactional exchange. Each word she spoke seemed to ignite recognition in the faces she glanced at. The murmurs of agreement rippled like waves through a troubled sea, indicating a collective stirring. But alongside this burgeoning support was a visceral fear of repercussion, the internal struggle reflected in the concern etched into the features of her peers. Were they prepared to break free of the malaise bred by years of deference, or would they cling to the familiar? The thought sent another jolt of anxiety through her. She didn't just carry her ambitions now, she bore the weight of their hopes, too. "Do I look afraid?" she whispered to herself under her breath, steeling her resolve. She couldn't afford hesitation. This was a threshold, and all that stood on the other side was the promise of something greater. Gregory regained composure, a chill settling in the atmosphere. "You have a lot of passion, Maya," he sneered, the hint of desperation still clinging to his voice. "But passion alone doesn't drive a business forward. You need strategy. Results. You need to convince people to follow you, not just challenge them." His tone was predatory, aimed at destabilizing her newfound momentum. Maya felt her stomach knot. His words pricked at her insecurities, provoking the vast ocean of doubt that she fought so desperately to keep at bay. His strategy was classic, an attempt to sow discord within her, to make her question if she was truly capable of leading this charge. But she had come too far to let him win. Following someone with no vision is sitting idle. "I'm challenging the status quo that stagnates all of us," she countered, each phrase crisp and deliberate, her voice echoing with resolve. The words flowed more easily now, an articulation of not just her thoughts but her courage. Her confidence rallied. She noted the intrigued expressions of those behind her, the flicker of ambition reflected in their eyes. Perhaps they, too, were beginning to question their held ideals. This was not just about her challenge against him, it was also a call to awakening within them. Yet, what lay ahead was still uncertain. Maya was teetering on the brink of transformation, fully aware of the risks tethered to such a confrontation. Would they coalesce into a movement, or would they retreat into the comfort of complacency? She looked out into the crowd, meeting eyes that screamed for acknowledgement and advocacy. "Join me in this fight," she urged, aiming to evoke a collective response. "This isn't just my fight, it's ours. We deserve a seat at the decision-making table where our voices can shape outcomes where we won't just be shadows in the background." Yet an unfamiliar dread settled in her. What if they said no? Gregory leaned in, attempting to siphon her courage with his power play. "You forget, Maya, running a company isn't about idealism. It's about sacrifice and shrewd decisions." The words pricked at her. Sacrifice didn't mean blind obedience, it could mean dismantling oppressive systems that sought to crush individualism. The irony was glaring. He accused her of being naive when it was he who didn't understand that true leadership meant galvanizing people, not instilling fear. In that instant, the world outside her confrontation faded, and Maya made a choice. She would not fold or cower. She would confront the backlash not just of Gregory, but of a corporate culture that thrived on suppression. Then she took a deep breath and faced her audience. "I've done the work," she declared, her conviction firm. "I'm here because I deserve to be, and so does every woman who feels unseen and unheard. The change isn't just necessary, it is upon us, and I will not stand down." Determination surged within her as the crowd began to react with murmurs of agreement. But it began to dawn on her the smallest step could invigorate their collective fight. Just then, she spotted a woman in the back. Her eyes glistened with tears but also reflected a strength that was once dormant. Maya's heart swelled. This was the very reason she fought. Yet Gregory's next move loomed over her like an approaching storm. "Your naivete will be your downfall, Maya," he warned, his voice trailing off into an ominous buzz in the room. The challenge lay ahead. The battleground wasn't confined to them but stretched ominously into an expanse that seemed endless. How could she defend her newfound place in a world that thrived on silencing voices like hers? The stakes had never felt so real, her path so perilous. As the murmurs ignited into growing resolve, she felt the exhilarating mix of fear and anticipation surge through her. But would that initial momentum be enough to propel her into uncharted territory? Would she be able to navigate the inevitable fallout of her stand? The unease lingered, a powerful shadow threading through her thoughts as she prepared for what lay ahead. Maya's heart raced as she turned from the crowd to look at the uneasy faces of her colleagues. She had pulled back the curtain, exposing questions they had buried for too long under layers of complacency and fear. Yet, the next moment felt crucial. Could she maintain the momentum she had just ignited, or would Gregory's sinister prediction come true? As the murmurs quieted, she recognized she had reached a critical juncture. This was not just about the confrontation with Gregory anymore, this was about summoning the strength to lead the very people who stood before her, gun-shy yet hungry for change. Could she galvanize their interest into a cohesive force, or would it slip away into mere echoes of passion? Taking her place at the helm of this unexpected storm, Maya breathed deeply, steadying her mind. The weight of the moment pressed heavily on her. There was no turning back. The seed she had planted needed nurturing, not just within herself but throughout the fragile group. What will it take? She wondered, grappling with the lurking uncertainties. Could she pull together a chorus of voices to drown out Gregory's skepticism? A sharp glint of resolve cut through her anxiety as she surveyed the crowd again. There were faces she recognized, years of dedication etched into their features, yet there were also fresh expressions of curiosity and budding determination. Who among them could be allies? Who could transform this from her personal vendetta into a shared war cry? Maya leaned into her role as a leader. I understand what's at stake for all of us, she began, letting the gravity of her words sink in. We might not have all the answers, but we've got something powerful, the courage to speak up and push for change. She glanced at the woman from earlier, whose eyes now bore a flicker of understanding. Together, we can break the cycle of fear and expectation. But a wave of doubt shimmered in the edges of her thoughts. How could she convince them to embrace uncertainty and stand in solidarity? She needed a plan, and fast. She could sense the split between hope and hesitance thickening in the air. Gregory's influence loomed like an ominous cloud, all too ready to erode trust with the littlest doubt. If she faltered now, it would resonate like an echo of defeat, an echo they couldn't afford. I want to organize a meeting, Maya pressed on, her voice unwavering. A safe space for everyone to voice their fears, their dreams, and even their resistance. Change doesn't have to mean chaos, it can be collaborative. She could almost hear the internal debate waging within the crowd. Questions swirled, would they be willing to embrace this newfound voice? Perhaps they were used to Gregory's oppressive brand of leadership, a methodical and stifling regime that thrived on silence. Would they take the plunge with her? Just as doubt clawed at her resolve, a hand shot up. Carl, a junior manager she admired but had feared was too ingrained in the company's conventional mindset. And if we get shut down? He asked, vulnerability lacing his tone. What if Gregory retaliates or makes this difficult for us? Maya's heart quickened again, but she recognized his inquiry as an opportunity. He might, she acknowledged, embracing the reality of the risk. But what's the cost of doing nothing? How long can we stay compliant and watch our dreams fade? She felt the shifting energy in the room, a potent mix of apprehension and excitement that danced like wildfire. For the first time in years, they were considering the weight of compliance against the sacrifice of speaking out. Could she harness this moment, gather them together? What we need most now, Carl, is courage, Maya asserted, leaning into the burgeoning energy of her peers. Together we can find solutions and build strategies. We can chart a path that both considers our fears but also confronts the reality that we cannot change what doesn't serve us. With each word, conviction supplanted hesitation. The crowd rippled with a newfound boldness, it was mesmerizing. Maya could feel the tide beginning to turn. But her mind remained one step ahead, mapping what this could mean, a movement or perhaps a cascading fallout from the higher-ups. Yet Gregory's face, entrenched in skepticism, loomed large in her mind. His cynicism was a beast she couldn't overlook. Would he dismiss their efforts? Would retaliation echo in how they ran the department? Maya wrestled with the notion of what failure could mean. It's a trap that could stifle every aspiration she charged forth with. The juxtaposition of hope and fear created a tension she knew she would have to navigate. Just then, a thought struck her: it couldn't solely rest on her shoulders. This had to be an authentic alliance of shared challenges. Everyone had to rise together, or they would surely fall apart individually. But even as determination sparked within her, she questioned, Was she prepared to lead the charge into unknown territory, or had she misstepped by urging others on this path? As she stood poised to confront the uncertainties that lay before them, one question resonated louder than the rest: if she forged ahead, what would become of her relationships with those who chose safety over struggle? The impending fallout remained a mystery. The stakes hadn't felt this amplified before. What awaited her just beyond this moment could lead to profound change or the end of the path she had started to carve. Maya's decision loomed over her like thick fog, enveloping her thoughts with the weight of impending risks. As the newfound resolve in the room dimmed and flickered, her mind raced forward, calculating the possibilities and consequences of what lay ahead. There was no denying the tides had shifted, but she understood this was only the beginning. Carl's question echoed as she crossed her arms tightly, a physical manifestation of her inner turmoil. What if they got shut down? It was a valid apprehension, one she shared privately. The prospect of Gregory's retaliation etched itself into her mind, deepening the lines of worry that began to inhabit her brow. She gazed at her colleagues, their uncertain expressions pulling at her resolve. Failure felt tangible, almost suffocating, and it imbued her with an urgency to define her path and theirs. Are we ready for this? She silently questioned, looking into the faces she'd known for years yet had never truly seen. The stakes had changed. She was no longer just a participant in the office politics but a catalyst, or at least, she hoped to be. But she needed allies, she needed voices that would rise alongside hers. She couldn't do it alone. That reality coiled tight in her chest as she made her way to Carl, who appeared lost in thought. "What do you think?" she asked, her voice less commanding this time, revealing the raw vulnerability masked by her earlier bravado. Carl's gaze locked on hers, contemplation overthrowing his earlier hesitance. "I think we need to prepare. This isn't just a poolside discussion. If we want to confront this, we need to build momentum." A spark ignited within her. "How can we prepare?" He paused, hesitating before the words spilled out. "Let us gather ideas. Know what we want from these meetings. Create a framework that keeps us grounded while exploring change. But also, understand how to anticipate pushback." Gregory won't like this. Maya's heart raced as clarity washed over her. "Exactly. We'll need strategies that resonate. We must bring transformative concepts and make them actionable. This can't just remain abstract. We need to show how our ideas can work, how it could benefit the company at large." It was a shift. They were transitioning from fear to planned action. Momentum was more than just a rush, it needed a foundation. "Let us meet beyond just voice work. We can create task forces that break down larger ideas into smaller, manageable components. Everyone can contribute, and we can strategize long-term." The idea coursed through her. As Carl nodded, she could feel shared understanding bubbling just beneath the surface. They were crafting a vision, weaving together perspectives, all while edging towards something larger than themselves. There was rich potential brewing, a palpable energy that surged through her veins. As Maya spoke with Carl, a surprising warmth began to envelop her. She realized her instincts as a leader had surfaced more organically than she'd anticipated. This was more than just her voice, it was a call to unearth the voices of those who had remained subdued, waiting for someone to take that initial step. Ideas exchanged and excitement grew. Plans crystallized. As the group began to fragment, each manager buzzed with purpose. There was work to be done, research, proposals to draft, discussions to be had. But as Maya stared at her quietly departing colleagues, doubt slinked back into view, lurking just out of reach. Would they really rise to the challenge? Would they brave haunted memories of Gregory's doubt and hostility? She bit her lip, the gnawing uncertainty rippling like a stone cast into a pond. Moments later, she caught sight of Gregory in the corridor, his stance casual yet predatory, an imposing figure that made her heart sink. His dismissal always echoed like a bell tolling doom. Would he see the rumblings of insurrection? Would he notice the buzz of her colleagues and the transformative dialogues taking shape in their hearts? Maya's pulse quickened, a surge of adrenaline coursing through her. The fear that tightened like chains in her stomach began transforming into resolve. She would lead this transformation, facing both opportunity and failure straight on. But was she strong enough? Every heartbeat became a reminder of her tightrope walk, half of her thrilled by the potential of what they could accomplish, while the other half floundered under the weight of consequence. Now, as she confronted Gregory's lurking presence down the hall, her next choice loomed large: confront him directly, or prepare from the shadows, calculating each step. The moment of truth was approaching. She needed a plan that would not just withstand the storm but ensure it would lead to something transformative, something that would redefine her future and possibly that of her colleagues as well. Would she still have the courage to meet him when the time came? Clenching her fists, Maya steadied herself. The gauntlet was thrown. She had to prepare for the conflict she knew was coming. Would this mark the beginning of her ascent, or the end of her initial vision? With determination swelling in her chest, she understood one thing clearly: the confrontation was inevitable now. She just had to decide how she would engage Gregory when the moment arrived. Maya took a deep breath, her mind racing with myriad possibilities, each one laced with tension. She envisioned the confrontation with Gregory, the unexpected remarks he might throw her way, dismissals meant to undermine her newfound resolve. Each scenario played out like a film loop in her head, the stakes high and her courage wavering. Turning away from the corridor where Gregory lingered, she anchored herself in the reality of the moment. This wasn't merely about overcoming one man's belittlement, it was about harnessing the strength of her colleagues, showing them they were capable of more than submission. Gathering her thoughts, she felt the pulsing energy of anticipation. They had the potential to ignite change and she was determined not to squander it. She found herself in the break room, where light flickered over the scattered coffee cups and hurriedly eaten snacks. As she grabbed a mug, her fingers brushed against a scrap of paper pinned to the bulletin board, announcing another of Gregory's executive directives. The document felt like a weight pressing down on her instincts. It was his proclamation, yet here she was, ready to summon her allies to reshape the narrative. Her plan began to crystallize, weaving inspiration from the discussions with Carl and the excitement that lingered among her peers. Maya envisioned crafting an inclusive strategy that would validate their perspectives while presenting a united front against the impending storm. Each voice needed to be honored, each idea carefully considered. The next steps were crucial. She swiftly gathered her notes and sent out a message to her team, inviting them to a brainstorming session after hours. It was a simple call to action, yet it felt as if she were throwing a lifeline. Let us collaborate. Let us challenge the status quo. In the days leading up to the meeting, she hardly slept. Maya spent late nights refining details, mapping out a framework that would guide their discourse. What would resonate? What could turn the tides? Her mind often drifted to Gregory's impending judgment, but she reminded herself of the purpose fueling her efforts: a restoration of faith and dignity, not just for herself but for everyone in the room. On the day of their meeting, an air of cautious optimism filled the small conference room. Colleagues trickled in, hesitant at first, but Maya welcomed them warmly, capturing their attention with the gravitas of her ideas. As she spoke, something shifted. She noticed the initial apprehension in their faces begin to fade, replaced by a flicker of interest. They shared their thoughts, fueling ideas, as connections sparked and grew. Collaborative energy enveloped the space, and for the first time, it felt like a shared mission rather than a defiance against authority. Our vision, Maya declared, her voice steady, is not just about resistance but about imagining what this workplace can become. We may not have all the answers yet, but we have each other. As discussions unfolded, she felt her self-doubt recede. Memories of Gregory's condescending words began to blur into an echo as her colleagues rallied around the burgeoning concept, one that represented empowerment and unity. Together, they forged actionable tasks, dividing responsibilities in a way that not only showcased individual strengths but approximated a cohesive strategy. However, just as the momentum swelled, the door swung open abruptly. Gregory stood silhouetted against the bright light of the corridor, a cold smile plastered across his face. The room fell silent, all eyes converging on the executive who had held them captive in a cycle of fear. Maya's heart raced. Would he dismiss their effort, crush their spirit at the first opportunity? In his presence, her meticulously crafted plan felt like fragile glass, teetering on the edge. This was the moment she had both prepared for and dreaded, the confrontation she had commanded in her mind but now faced in stark reality. "Did I interrupt something important?" Gregory asked, his voice dripping with condescension. "I commend your ambitious spirit, but do you really think this is what the company needs?" The challenge hung heavy in the air, every heartbeat echoing the tension spiraling between them. Maya clenched her fists, steeling herself against the impending counterattack. Would she hold her ground and redefine her narrative, or succumb to his dominance yet again? Gathering her thoughts, Maya prepared for the showdown. The beginning of transformation was at hand, but first, she would confront the very force that had sought to oppress it. As she opened her mouth to respond, the realization struck her: this was not just a battle for her vision but her identity. Would she emerge victorious, ready to steer her team forward, or crumble under Gregory's relentless intimidation? The answer was as uncertain as the outcome of the struggle she had ignited. Maya inhaled deeply, the silence of the room amplifying the thudding of her heart. The tables had turned, she was no longer merely reacting to Gregory's presence. This was her moment not just to defend her ideas, but to assert her rightful place in the conversation. "Gregory," she started, forcing steadiness into her voice, "I believe what we're discussing is fundamental to the growth of our team and the future of this company. It's not merely an ambition, but a necessity. People here need to feel heard and valued." The subtle shift in the atmosphere was palpable as Maya became acutely aware that her colleagues were leaning in, their expressions tense but filled with a newfound hope. It struck her then that confronting Gregory wasn't just about her, it was about showing the team they had power too. Ambition without purpose only perpetuates the status quo, she pressed on, noticing the scorn gathering around Gregory's mouth. "They deserve to know that their contributions matter. This is how we evolve." Gregory's eyes narrowed, his demeanor shifting imperceptibly from mirth to a tight-lipped, calculated scorn. "What you propose could destabilize everything we've worked for. You might be playing with fire, Maya." Maya felt a tremor of anxiety ripple through her, but she kept her gaze locked onto his. "Or maybe it's time to light a fire, Gregory. Change happens when we challenge existing frameworks that no longer serve us." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, an unexpected alliance forming beneath the weight of Gregory's condescension. In that instant, the tension wavered like an unseen thread, pulling together the resilience of her colleagues. They were with her, not as passive spectators but as active participants in this critical pivot of their collective identity. "But are you willing to risk your reputation on this?" he fired back, his tone a chilling mix of skepticism and thinly veiled threat. Maya felt the prickling warmth of anger surface. This was a challenge she could not back down from. "It's not about my reputation, Gregory. It's about creating a space where everyone can thrive. I'm willing to take that risk. Are you?" There it was, the moment of confrontation, the gauntlet laid down. No more merely addressing Gregory as an authority figure from whom she sought approval, she was claiming her place as a leader. In an instant, the gravity of that shift surged through her like armor, quelling her earlier fears. "Leadership is not just about command," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "It's about empowering others, fostering an environment where innovation can flourish. If we're only focused on maintaining the status quo, we'll inevitably stagnate." A ripple of excitement surged through her colleagues, they mirrored her energy. Maya saw nods, shared glances of support, and muted gasps of realization. This was what they needed, someone to articulate the disquiet they had felt but not been able to voice. Gregory recoiled slightly, the sharpness of his condescension wavering. "You don't know what you're asking for. You're inviting chaos. Or a chance to redefine our dynamic, Maya countered, fueled by the energy gathering in the space around her. Chaos can lead to growth, or it could expose us to the outdated practices that have held us back. I choose the former. The door swung closed behind him with a definitive thud, and for a heartbeat, the world outside faded. For Maya, it was a moment suspended in time, a presence cast against the hopes simmering just beneath the surface of their collective consciousness. Maybe you should take this chance to rethink, Gregory said at last, his voice lower, yet unyielding. But you will learn that innovation comes with a cost. Maya smiled faintly, deeply aware that she was already paying a price, the price of authenticity, of standing up against an established norm. Every cost is a step toward clarity. I'm ready to lead. As he turned to leave, Maya felt the rush of adrenaline mix with a wave of determination. There was no turning back now. The team's energy had shifted, and now she had a responsibility not only to her vision but to those who had rallied around her. Maya knew the tide had begun to turn, but she also felt the fundamental truth that Gregory's shadow still loomed large, and this confrontation was merely the beginning. Had she risked everything for something that could crumble in moments, or was this her chance to build something that truly honored their potential? The answer lay ahead, shrouded in uncertainty yet pulsing with the promise of what could be. She turned to her colleagues, their faces illuminated with a mix of apprehension and excitement, and knew the next steps would require courage beyond measure. Let us keep this conversation going. Together, we can forge a path forward. And as the meeting transitioned into a brainstorming session filled with shared energy and ideas, Maya could feel the groundwork for something greater being laid, unaware of the brewing storm that was about to challenge everything she believed. But even while riding this wave of momentum, anticipation pricked her senses. How would Gregory respond next, and would his return escalate their journey into a bitter confrontation that could threaten their fledgling unity? Maya stood at the head of the table, the previously tense atmosphere now buzzing with creativity and determination. Names bounced around, ideas collided, and for the first time, the team felt like a cohesive unit, united by their hope for change. Yet, beneath the surface excitement, a flicker of doubt lingered inside her. As the brainstorming session progressed, her colleagues began to share their own concerns, highlighting obstacles they anticipated. Maya listened intently, her mind working to parse through each issue as it emerged. The momentum was palpable, yet every constructive contribution also felt like a fragile thread. Would they be able to weave it into something substantial, something that would withstand external critique, particularly from Gregory? Let us not lose sight of the core purpose behind our discussions, Maya interjected, a calm steel threading through her voice. This isn't just about making noise, it's about creating meaningful impact for our team and the company as a whole. She observed how their expressions softened, collective understanding settling like a blanket over the group. This was no longer an isolated fight. It was about redefining the workplace, a mission that transcended individual concerns. As voices layered over one another, a sense of urgency propelled her thoughts. The exhilarating buzz of possibility was intoxicating, but it was also a double-edged sword. Gregory hadn't truly retreated, he was lurking in the shadows, waiting for the moment to strike back. Maya needed to be prepared for the inevitable backlash. Let us break this into actionable steps, she suggested, pulling out a whiteboard. Each goal written down seemed to gain a life of its own, a tangible commitment to their shared vision. She watched their excitement reignite with every point they established. Just as they were mapping out the next steps, the door swung open. Maya's breath caught in her throat as Gregory stepped back into the room, his presence casting a chill. "Still plotting?" he asked, a disingenuous smile spreading across his face. "I hope you're prepared for the ramifications of your choices." Maya felt adrenaline course through her veins. It was a reminder that challenging the status quo meant facing pushback, and she couldn't allow their fire to be extinguished. Her heart raced, yet she stood firm. "We're not plotting, Gregory. We're evolving." A tense silence filled the room as she locked eyes with him. There was a moment of wild uncertainty, but the resolve of her colleagues radiated back at her. She sensed that, despite his intimidation tactics, something had shifted. They were ready to stand their ground. "I hope for your sake that you're ready," he replied, an eerily calm menace lingering in his tone. "Innovation doesn't come without consequences. Your so-called evolution could very well lead to chaos, perhaps even a downturn for everyone involved." Maya took a breath, centering herself within the maelstrom brewing in the room. This was the moment she had anticipated. It was no longer just about the ideas, but about her ability to confront the challenges head-on. "You say chaos, Gregory, but we call it growth. The status quo isn't serving us, and sticking to outdated practices cloaked in comfort will only lead us into oblivion." Her voice was steady, but internally, she felt the stakes heighten. "You misunderstand," he said, now a bit less menacing but still laced with disbelief. "When I say chaos, I mean the end of your leadership aspirations." His words struck her, but instead of faltering, they ignited her determination. She imagined the bright future ahead, one where creativity flourished without fear. "The only thing I fear is stagnation, Gregory. I'm willing to risk everything for a real change." With her colleagues rallying behind her, Maya could feel the weight of their support, bolstering her resolve. This confrontation was not just a battle for her leadership, it was a turning point. As the potential repercussions loomed, she knew the road ahead would grow perilous. As they delved into their next objective, she knew there would be setbacks. Would she emerge intact, leading as she envisioned, or would the backlash steal the seat she fought for? Maya harnessed her anxiety, transforming it into a clarion call for growth. "Let us mark this moment as a new beginning," she proclaimed, knowing full well that every step forward came with its burdens. As they plunged deeper into their plans, the echo of Gregory's threat hung in the air, a reminder of the ambitious path they were forging. She clenched her hands in resolution, ready to face what darkness he would bring, whatever it may cost her. The choice was no longer just hers, but a collective endeavor that demanded every ounce of commitment. She would need to prepare not only her team but herself for the inevitable storm. But was she ready to confront Gregory again if need be? The coming days would reveal the truth entwined in that question, as challenges loomed just on the horizon. Maya stood at the helm of her team, the air thick with anticipation after the recent confrontations with Gregory. Her heart found a rhythm as the voices of her colleagues echoed her own conviction. They had formed an allied front, and while their journey had been daunting and fraught with peril, every moment of uncertainty had transformed her in ways she had never expected. After several weeks of collaboration, setting the groundwork for their vision had not only become tangible but invigorated her sense of purpose. She witnessed firsthand how courage reverberated through their meetings. Each brainstorming session was charged with fresh ideas grounded in their collective commitment to change. They had decided to shift their focus from reactive criticisms of the past to innovative solutions for the future. No longer merely resisting, they were creating a new narrative. One fateful afternoon, as the sun poured into the conference room like liquid gold, Maya led a session to finalize their strategic plan. The air buzzed with excitement and palpable synergy as each voice contributed toward a single purpose. She marveled at how they had morphed from hesitant individuals into a united front, each discussing their hopes and fears, turning obstacles into opportunities with a sense of shared responsibility. As the discussion crescendoed, Maya noticed the sturdy camaraderie forming around her. It filled her with warmth and confidence. Then the door swung open, and in walked Gregory, the shadow looming over their hard-earned progress. A hush fell over the room, each colleague instinctively bracing for confrontation. "Still chasing delusions of progress, I see," he asserted, a sardonic smile flitting across his face. "You're all aware that going against the established hierarchy comes at a high price." Maya's breath hitched. Every instinct in her body pushed her toward apprehension, but seasoned resolve anchored her thoughts. She steeled herself, turning inward as her colleagues looked to her for direction. It was no longer about defiance, it was about asserting a new standard. "No, Gregory," she replied, her tone steady, we are not chasing delusions. We're pursuing clarity and integration of principles that support every individual in this organization. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing, attempting to undermine her steel. Will your insight shield you from the fallout? I'd wager it might just crack under the pressure. The challenge ignited flames of determination from within her. Or perhaps it will be the catalyst for sustainable change, Maya countered, a reflection of how failing to adapt can threaten stability. The tension coiled as she felt the surge of collective solidarity among her team. She took a deep breath and pressed on, articulating the ideas they had crafted. Our framework prioritizes inclusivity and aims to elevate all employees, making voices heard that have been silenced for too long. It's time for a shift that is not just beneficial but essential. An incredulous laugh escaped Gregory's lips, but it was met with expressions of fierce support from her colleagues. Their nods and murmurs fueled Maya's resolve, spurring her to forge ahead. She stood taller, invigorated by the trust she sensed building behind her. Each supportive gaze felt like armor against his skepticism. Are you truly prepared to gamble the company's reputation? He spat, but she felt the foundations of his argument slipping. Yes, she asserted firmly, locking eyes with each colleague present. We are ready to take that risk because we believe in progress. This isn't just my ambition, it reflects a collective yearning for respect, acknowledgement, and prosperity without exploitation. The intensity in the room intensified as colleagues chimed in, echoing her sentiments. Maya's heart raced with gratitude. Gregory's last vestiges of uncertainty flickered, and she saw cracks in his polished facade. You really think they'll support such unprecedented change? He asked, voice laced with mock disbelief, unable to comprehend the unity before him. I know they will, Maya affirmed, a surge of confidence filling her. Every individual here is invested in this vision, and when they stand together, nothing can deter us from this transformative journey. Then, with palpable inspiration woven into the air, she directed them to present their proposals alongside her. Together, they articulated plans filled with actionable metrics that would demonstrate accountability for every member of the staff, thus rendering hollow his threats against them. With newfound fervor, they turned the conversation from Gregory's doubt to a shared conviction, transforming the narrative with each proposal they introduced. As momentum built, Maya sensed a shift in the atmosphere, a collective energy that promised something not just revolutionary, but necessary. And when Gregory turned to leave, defeat mingled with disbelief on his face. The tone had changed, what had once seemed like an uphill battle now felt like a rising tide of victory. Maya felt a sense of triumph wash over her. She had stepped out of the shadows, she had conquered not only her apprehensions but also the traditional barriers that sought to suppress her and her colleagues. As the meeting came to a close, her colleagues erupted in applause, their spirits lifted. Maya could hardly believe how far they had all come. They had embraced their collective agency, refusing to cower in the face of adversity. In that moment, surrounded by the affirmation of shared aspirations and recognition, Maya realized the true power of unity. She had not only stepped into her role as a leader but had also reclaimed the narrative for an entire team. The door to genuine progress had swung wide open, and as she looked around the room, her heart brimmed with hope. This was at a pivotal moment that marked the true beginning of their journey together. Now was the time for all of you who resonate with these stories of empowerment and transformation. You need to subscribe now to stay in the loop and never miss another exclusive emotional story. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread these journeys. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Maya's journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. Together, let us keep the narrative of overcoming and empowerment alive.